Madison, Wisconsin. Life is very rich spiritually because of Penny Andrews. She also was a chaplain at the University of Wisconsin hospitals and in Madison. She's a permaculturist. She says actually she's the visionary and her husband gets the one who gets his fingers dirty. But nonetheless, she is the one who's understanding in a very deep way in her own backyard what this all is about. She got her DMin from the University of Creation Spirituality in 2001. And she is on fire, as usual. So I think you will enjoy today's presentation and it will set your hearts on fire as well. So welcome, Penny.
Thank you, Gail. And truly I am a napster. I nap and I could not nap today. That's how fired up I am. Actually, if you're on Facebook, there's someone who has put out a ministry of napping. And it's kind of an interesting page if you ever get inclined to explore. Well, for those of you that were with us last month, we had Jennifer Morgan as our guest, and she created the Deeptime Network and has called together an amazing group of people who are all living into the universe story as they understand it, whether they're from a religious background or a science background or a literary background. People are coming together to explore how do we make this alive in our day today now as we face looming changes. And just this week, David Suzuki and David Attenborough issued dire warnings, not new or dissimilar, just saying things are a mess, and calling us all to rise up to our allurements where we are most called to serve the greater whole and take our part. And so, so with that little bit of introduction, I thought we'd work with I'd offer the deep time perspective overview. And Bob, if you would put that up, please. There we go. The deep time perspective uses the context, our largest context, which is the universe's unfolding. Then it links us through a matrix to our earth and our interdependence, our total relationality. Next, it works with our interiority, our capacity to transform into our larger identities, to evolve, to through choice, through inner wisdom, inner guidance, through circumstance, to transform our larger identity. And then take action for creating the future based on our evolutionary impulse. All right, thanks, Bob. I'll say more about this later on, but as an opening, I thought we could begin this process that Gail and I are being exposed to. Perhaps you've been exposed to it. And again, the chat box is over there for sharing of burning sharings that want to happen or questions that are unclear. But please feel free to engage with that as we go along, because there's a lot of content here, and this is everything is co-created when you start playing in the universe. But the teaching that kind of took the top off my head the first time I was exposed to it is something out of emergent dialogue, David Bohm's dialogue. There are many paths apparently to this, but it's meditation with others, with sensing and process. You drop away identity and you just connect with the breath, deepen into that place of where inner guidance comes. And I'm inviting you to do it now so that during the course of what's said, some of that relaxation, that embodiment is hearing this timeless information, and perhaps in a new way it will be received. But the idea is that for extended periods of time, and what I would liken it to for those who have been around a fire in the night sky, where you're sitting around the fire and the flames are going up, 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 and your consciousness shifts and you use less words and you're engaged more deeply. And a lot of things drift away that are unnecessary to that moment. And you enter into entrainment with, you create a field with the people that you're doing this with. And I thought maybe you could stay there while I share this poem from Robert Weston. Out of the stars. Out of the stars in their flight, out of the dust of eternity, here have we come. Stardust and sunlight, mingling through time and through space. Out of the stars have we come, up from time. Out of the stars have we come, time out of time before time, in the vastness of space. Earth spun to orbit the sun. Earth with the thunder of mountains newborn, the boiling of seas. Earth warmed by the sun, lit by sunlight. This is our home. Out of the stars have we come, mystery hidden in mystery, back through all times. Mystery rising from rocks in the storm and the sea. Out of the stars, rising from rocks and the sea, kindled by sunlight on earth, arose life. Ponder this thing in your heart. Life up from sea, eyes to behold, throats to sing, mates to love. Life from the sea, warmed by sun, washed by rain. Life from within, giving birth, rose to love. This is the wonder of time. This is the marvel of space. Out of the stars swung the earth. Life upon earth rose to love. This is the marvel of life, rising to see and to know. Out of your heart, cry wonder. Sing that we live. Every cell in your body is packed with hydrogen, made when the universe first arose. Your bones are hardened with calcium, made by stars. Your backbone was fashioned by fish. The deepest part of your brain was built by reptiles. The love you feel for another deepened inside the very first mammals. Your awe-filled wonder began on starry nights around campfires, long, long ago. What I find so very exciting is that what we're about to go into in more depth is being considered to be taught in science classes. And as it has lived in me for 20 years, someone who felt driftless and disconnected, which has only accelerated in our fractured time on Earth. This is the big collective coming together. And I hope truly that this can be done soon, and with the passion that lovers of science can have. But here we are living in this time, and it's really important to acknowledge this. And John Perkins of Pachamama recently said, we need a vision. We can't move towards a vision if we don't have a vision. And so Louis McNamara, who's a pretty well-known permaculturist from England, writes this about why that vision is important. It was once thought impossible to fly, to end slavery and apartheid, but these things have all come to reality. Is it possible for us to feed the world and for every citizen to live in safety? Is it possible to reverse ecosystem destruction and climate change? What dreams do we hold for ourselves personally? What visions are hiding behind the smokescreen of I can't, it will never happen, it's not possible? Allowing for the possibility of the seemingly impossible invites us to ask, why not? What's stopping us? Can we look beyond the glass ceilings, subtle barriers, and limiting beliefs? We are encouraged to let go of the impossible box. We can give voice to what our hearts truly desire, giving visions space to breathe, expand, become more detailed, and open to full potential. Holding a belief that something is possible, that we can solve a problem, will keep us engaged in looking for solutions, trying new combinations, and experimenting. We remain observant for shifts and openings and opportunities to cooperate with others. We can connect with a bigger vision of possibility for ourselves and humanity. Our vision will motivate the genius inside of us, engaging our creativity and activating our gifts. So, Bob, can we see slide 2? So this is the context of our origin. That hydrogen that is within us, in every cell, is from 13.8 billion years ago. And then as we progress more and more and more, becomes complex and connected till we find ourselves in our present day. And a very challenging present day it is. All right. We're being called to move from ego to eco. And it is our time to begin to see ourselves differently in the context of this story holding our earth as it does, and also allowing forward motion, not slumping and shrugging our shoulders, but to harness the fullness of our 13.8 billion years journey. The universe is 99% generativity, according to Brian Swim. And our lives are a culmination of allurements. And I'll say more about that there. These allurements are interacting with the earth, but also with universe's patterning. we are coming to understand that there is a collective trauma that we carry from personal family, from cultural family, on down. And that actually becomes some of the seed of what can be our strength moving forward. But what's also clear is we are not very knowledgeable of what collective well-being looks like yet. Our Earth is changing as we must. We're, Bob, next slide. This is a story from Brian Swim about the Large Magellanic Cloud. And it talks about relationality and how critical it is in the heavens. And later you'll see how critical it is in our lives. This large LMC is the abbreviation, is a satellite to the Milky Way. And through our knowledge of its history, some astronomers speculate that LMC began as a spiral galaxy, but some cataclysm took place billions of years ago, and its spiral structure was destroyed. Perhaps this occurred as a head-on collision with another galaxy, or it passed a larger galaxy whose gravitational attraction was too much to bear and tore this large-scale structure apart. Whatever the trauma was, it led to a collapse of its ability to create stars. Thus was the LMC stripped of the promise it had when it came forth as a young galaxy. LMC was abandoned. It drifted about, each star's death just another step toward the final darkness that now awaited it. But then something happened. After billions of years, the LMC was drawn into a gravitational relationship with our Milky Way galaxy. LMC began with a new orbit that would lead to a new destiny. In a gravitational relationship, each member is changed by the interaction. And think there also of the word allurement. In an allurement, each member is changed by the interaction. The gravitational tidal force issuing from the Milky Way penetrated into the system of stars that formed the LMC, and the structure began to change. A regeneration of LMC was occurring in the presence of the Milky Way. Bob? Next slide. And then an awakening occurred. A burst of star-making activity appeared in one of the dormant regions of the LMC. For billions of years, LMC had drifted about, barren and dying. Now, suddenly, its potentiality was ignited through this interaction, and new stars were evoked. All right. Back to the main screen, Bob. Thanks. So, if we think of our place in time, we're up against big challenges. We're leaving the Cenozoic era and entering into an uncharted era of upheaval. In the 80s, the term VUCA was coined, which stands for volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. Tomas Berry says this: The Earth has gone through a sequence of biological periods of Earth development. We are presently in the terminal phase of the Cenozoic and the emerging phase of what he calls the Echozoic Era. The Cenozoic is the period of biological development that has taken place during the past 65 million years. The Ecozoic is the period when human conduct will be guided by Berry's words, an ideal of an integral Earth community, a period when humans will be present on Earth in a mutually enhancing manner. The Cenozoic period, meaning new life, was ushered in by a die-off, and it will be ushered out also by a die-off. And we humans will be witnessing this. Civilizations, according to Giambattista Vico, said that each era of transition has to lead us back to life itself. When a civilization grows away from the vigor of its founding myth, it comes into a barbarism of refinement. Anne Baring writes in The Dream of the Cosmos, all civilizations possess in the beginning one thing in common, the presence of a new image of humanity. In each case, the image and how it is manifested will vary according to the resources and needs of the epoch. For Athens, it was put in the form of drama. In Christian times, it was a completely new conception of humans who forgive and love enemies. Similar transformations also were seen in the Hindu and Buddhist cultures. In every case, a new image arises to transcend the conflicts of the age and to resolve dualism, to create fresh conceptions of the unity of one's relationship to one's God and one's relationship with nature. It is as though the deepest soul of humanity, welling over with compassion and concern for the struggles and divisions of humanity, surges up a vision of all that has been lost or disregarded, of infinite possibilities of thoughts and emotions, new directions to aspire to. The purpose of civilization is to conquer barbarism, which is the condition of living in a state of fear. A great civilization provides, on the scale of nations, the expression of security and a hope for this life and the next. Tomas Berry, again, says this historical mission of our times is to reinvent the human in a time-dimensional context by means of a story and a shared dream. We're looking at the possibility of a new human. And I'll say more about that in a little bit. The only choice before us is to enter into an Echozoic era, which is now being named more commonly the Anthropocene era. But in our framing, in each of us, in our hearts, as we are called to even listen for however much time we have, something's stirring in you to come to this talk. And it has to do with turning over your own ideas of what is possible, what is ours to know, what is ours to do, how are we to be. So in choosing Echozoic, even as you name the next era, you're making a choice that where the word is framed home of life. Eco, so on, is meaning home of life. And isn't that our Earth? The only planet we know that has life on it. think this is a good place to pause and just have some breaths and have any, either via chat or hand, if something's been evoked, let's have some dialogue around it, if you will.
For that, if you want to write it in the chat, I'll read out the chat. And if you want to go and raise your hand over there, then Bob will call your name. And we'll hear from you verbally if you want to.
Feel free to raise your hand in view or use the reactions button that Gail talked about earlier.
Perhaps you have a guiding quote that might be somewhere along the lines of what was just said. If not, I'll carry on. There's a lot. All right. Brian Swim has been saying this over and over for the last decades. This is the greatest discovery of the scientific enterprise. You take hydrogen gas, leave it alone, and it turns into rosebuds, giraffes, and humans. The earth was once molten gas, rock, and now it sings operas. Understanding our evolution and considering a new vision for humanity's role, unfolding our future, has been called the human curriculum of our times. And I go back to what a difference it would be if our young people coming up could have this same understanding that we are part of this interconnected web of life, but also of the stars and of the Big Bang. That there is no one who is displaced in the scheme of things. We are the Milky Way expressing itself as a human. Next slide, Bob. Our water is one water. And I'm a little embarrassed to say that that hadn't sunk very deeply for me until recently, very recently. And the next one, Bob? Our air is one breath. These are all cycles that within 1,000 years or 10,000 years, things will come back around. And the illusion of separation, the illusion that we don't have to care for our elements, that what happened at Fukushima is not on the horizon to impacting us. We can't survive separatist thinking. And so this is a visual that helps me understand truly we are one breath, we are one water. And it is precious. It is beyond precious. It's sacred. And Tomas Berry also has said that the things that you love are the things you will protect. And that becomes part of our allurement. Where does our allurement lead us to? So I'll say a little bit more about Tomas Berry's idea of the Echozoic Era. And you can Google quite a bit of information if you don't read his books, which are wonderful. But the first principle of the Ecozoic era is recognizing that the universe is primarily a communion of subjects, not a collection of objects. Every being has its own place and its proper role in the functioning of the planet, its own presentation of itself that might be identified as its voice. Our difficulty is that we've become autistic. We no longer listen to what the earth says, its landscape, its atmosphere, and all its living forms. Since the 17th century, we have not heard, we have not understood the inner world about us. We've experienced the external phenomena. Until we listen, until we do hear these voices and understand what they are telling us, our lives will continue to live shriveled. And as every potential for the extinctions push us further and further to an edge, it's becoming, our awareness awakens. Second principle, the Echozoic era might look at an ethical principle that goes beyond suicide and homicide and genocide, but add in biocide and geocide. Biocide is the wanton killing of the life systems of the planet, and geocide is the killing of the planet itself in major forms of expression. A third principle is noting that the human is derivative, the earth is primary. The primary concern of every profession, institute, and activity of the human betrays itself unless it makes the larger earth community its primary referent. A fourth principle might propose that in the future, the earth will function differently than it has functioned in the past. And we know that. We know that, and again, as David Suzuki and David Attenborough said this week, our elders, in their mid-80s and 90s, as Joanna Macy, who is in her 90s now, has been speaking, and Matt in his 80s, the elders are telling us. And so it's harder and harder to ignore, and we can't ignore it. That's why one point in our available healing tools is coming to understand collective trauma and the work of Thomas Hubel. There's the work of Joanna Macy that came out of the anti-nuclear work of the 80s, but is now very front and center for people like Jem Bendo and his deep adaptation work. I mean, the teachers are coming, the information is there, and it seems fairly coherent, and it is not unlike what many of the indigenous peoples have been saying for a long, long time, who have watched what has happened to their world. So it will be different, whatever it is, it will be different. And we will need the tools to handle the grief and the disruption and the looking at our children and our children's children at what they will be facing that we have no idea, but the tools are there. A fifth principle, progress must be progress of the entire life community, not progress of the human at the expense of the non-human members of the community. And then the last one he put in there is the easiest one. and it's via Transformativa. It's celebration. Celebrate this life. We are so lucky to be here at this time. Okay, this would be another time to pause and be in our we space if you like, or questions or comments or what's insights that have come.
Penny, can you hear me, Penny? Good. We have a request from Rollo that we might have, if you can, give us a list of your resources, or, I mean, your resources you've been collecting for years, but if you can give us, point us some ways that we might begin to access some of this information, that would be great. Maybe you can put in the chat later on when I'm ending, or right now. Okay. I have a wondering of how people are feeling. So we get so much of the pictures of the burning California and the hurricanes and the droughts and the starvation, and then there's a kind of a doomsday attitude. You have to change now. If you don't change now, it's going to be terrible. And while we know that, that won't get us where we want to go, which is what I think you're talking about. So I'm wondering where people see signs of hope. I wonder where you see what Penny's been talking about coming through among people, another sense of cooperation, another sense of how we need to work together, a sense of movement and creativity among the scientific community about solutions to the physical problems, not the cultural problems, but the physical problems. And I think the cultural problems are ours. So I'm wondering if anybody has some of that to share. It just may be that it's a group that you meet with and you think it's not important because it's 10 people, but in fact, it is important. It's been allured together by the universe. Any signs of hope?
Sylvia has her hand up.
Great.
Hi, can I speak?
We're waiting. We're
Okay.
ready for you.
I was thinking, a friend recently sent me pictures from her forest bathing experience, and they're just beautiful. The tall trees and the green and the quiet. It was just a lovely image for a Sunday morning. I think many people are now understanding that there are different ways to celebrate besides going to church in the usual way.
Thank you.
Yes, Clara. Claire.
Something I see as a source of hope is the awareness of the evolutionary process, because there has been death and then life, death and then life, consistently through the millions and billions of years. Example, the star had to fall to the ground and die in order for there to be carbon on planet Earth. And carbon is essential for life. The dinosaurs went extinct. Those dinosaurs, had they not gone extinct, would have gobbled up all the mammals, and human life would never have emerged with that having happened. So the context of the evolution, the universe story and the evolutionary process gives hope, because out of these disasters, life emerged eventually. And I'm counting on that to happen in what we're experiencing now in terms of the chaos and the mass killings, et cetera, that somehow out of this, new life will be born. And the people that Penny is talking about that are researching and writing and so on are sowing the seeds for what has to happen for the new life to emerge as the old is diminishing, hopefully. And that's what gives me hope, the big picture, and how the survival and the complexity, increasing complexity in the universe has gone on all these years. It's not going to stop now. And there's so much more.
Thank you. We have something Charles Gary wrote to us, which is, hope is the last thing you give up before enlightenment. That is very complex, is that not? And that is the Buddha, the words of the Buddha. Hope is the last thing you give up before enlightenment.
And Joanna Macy, as a Buddhist scholar, works with that concept in her book, Active Hope, that it's not the deceptive hope that we, or the simplistic hope we might hold, but it's looking directly in the eye of the storm and then taking the next step based on intention rather than am I going to survive this storm? So I don't know if that was clear, but the idea is you don't try to hide your eyes from what is, but your intention, what you say about how you stand for life is a larger concept than whether you win or lose in a policy situation, or in the case of nuclear, Joanna Macy, did she win that? Did she not? She brought people together, and this is the origin of how her Deeptime Network, or not her Deeptime, her work that Reconnects started. It was that people in isolation become deflated when they come together and share their deepest sorrow, their truth, their anger. They are transformed to keep in flow with life and what they are most committed to. That's the origin of her work. Claire just spoke a minute ago, and I just want to acknowledge that for many years she was my spiritual director, and we, the two of us, would just become transformed in our connection as we spoke and nurtured each other with what we were learning. And I would offer that as yet another path for those that are navigating what is my work, what is mine to do right now. That this spiritual direction, and a number of spiritual directors hold this perspective and can be very helpful. The idea in the universe story, as I've come to learn it, is that our own self-limiting beliefs are our biggest hindrance to taking steps. And to have the sense that, the spiritual world and the universe are not at all disconnected, they are in fact completely connected, was very empowering for me. So thank you, Claire, for speaking, and thank you for being here.
And your relationship reminds me of the Large Magellan galaxy. We give each other sparks. We bring each other alive.
No, it's interesting. We've gone from the green woods that I was trying to suggest to you to the universe. And I love both aspects of our work. But I'm thinking that unless you really also go out into the woods or a lovely area, you won't save what you don't love. And it's hard for me, it's a magnificent universe we're talking about, but it's hard for me to love it the way that I love going out into these beautiful woods that we still have. So I think both aspects of this situation that we have are important.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
But what we're learning, Sylvia, is that the universe is not just stars way, way out there. The universe is actually those trees and your footstep and your heartbeat and the bird singing, that it's all one kind of a fluvial foam of generativity at work on all levels. So sure, I do that too. Every morning I try now to go out and bathe myself in the universe, which is trees and birds outside my window, and see if I can catch that feeling of me really being a cousin to the trees and a partner in this life.
My
So-
bumper sticker says, everything is connected.
Yeah.
And your comments, Gail, just lift that up.
Mm.
And then perhaps to add something else from this recent course we've been in that I am just in love with, and it brings Sylvia's point full center. There's the tree, there's the forest, there's the fragrance.
Hmm.
Well, and I see what, Hubel, Thomas Hubel.
Mhm.
Let me get that on there before we move on. And please, I see that despair and empowerment has been added. If you have sources you are you find very helpful, please just share them with our group, and we hope to collect these and just get them out via some system.
Well,
With-
actually, what I'd like you to do, because that falls to me, in order to, if you would like the chat copy, I will send it to you. If you send me an email and ask for it. Otherwise, it involves hours of culling through email addresses for me. But I would really be happy, very happy to send it to you. So my email address, you see my name there, is Gail S. Ransom, no spaces or anything, just Gail S. Ransom @gmail.com. It's very easy. I'll put it in the chat too, and send it to me, or find your the mailer that I sent you, because that will also send things to me. It goes back to me. So I'm going to put my name in there. And if you want some of these wonderful resources that we've been collecting, people have been putting in the resources. So if you don't know that, there they are in the chat, and you're welcome to add to them.
All right. Let's move on to Matrix.
Penny, I'm sorry, I just noticed Melissa has her hand up.
Oh,
Okay.
please.
Hi, everyone. I've sort of been interested in this conversation for several reasons. I'm a particle astrophysicist, but I'm also a pagan. And when I was listening to the idea about the tree and the forest, I can't help but go, if your spirituality isn't brave enough to also chain yourself to the tree and stand in front of the machines, your wish for a forest is not very realistic. I think never before have elders been called into legacy, and our legacy really does need to be action and leadership. It cannot be a bunch of words that include basically the United States and no one else, in my opinion. We are absolutely called to use our education and our brilliance to do more than that, I think.
Thank you.
My
Thank
opinion.
you.
It's powerful. It's a powerful statement.
If you're not powerful, what have you been doing with your spirituality? Honestly, it's the whole purpose of it.
Thank you. So we'll move on to matrix and relationality. And we'll open with a poem from Claire Dubois. Let the birds take your clothes. Let the waves undo your holding back. Let the vines unravel your tired mind, and the earth savor your sweat and tears. Let your stories burn off like rising mist as your past and the false floors of your curbed self-love dissolve into butterfly wings and fireflies. As your edges blur and your planetary self ignites, let the trees bathe your breath. Let the meadows embrace you. Let the mountains and the bees remind you. Let the sky flood in and allow the clouds to guide you. Let your undoing be as total as your becoming is beautiful. And when the living world has climbed inside enough for you to feel 4 legs, scales, and wings, may you finally know yourself alive as all things, indivisible and responsible, reborn into wholeness, natural, sacred, and wild. So, relationality. How related are we? Bob. We're this related. And this is very new information. You know, a couple of generations back probably is the start of when this was really coming to the forefront. And I've seen other percentages where we're actually quite connected to cabbage, you know. So this is a drink in the truth of what is in us is in all that is living around us.
I think trees are 90%. But trees are, yeah.
Thank you, Bob. It's also true that 9 out of 10 of our cells are not human cells. They're non-human. So they're bacteria. They're other things for scientists to know and not me, but they are non-human. So it begins to question, you know, what is reality with this as science unfolds more and more, and keeping in mind that we are far from knowing what is knowable and what is possible to know. So there's a book out there that I would share. I've talked about it before. We Have No Idea, I think is the name of it. And it points out that we only know about 5% of what is knowable. And so it helps with the beginner's mind. You know, as much as we may know about a subject, we still have a huge gap that we don't know and is possibly unknowable. But I find that a very humbling piece of information. So Teilhard de Chardin spoke of 4 periods in Earth's history. He talked about geogenesis, biogenesis, psychogenesis, and noogenesis. And it talks about the land formation, the coming of life, the human evolution, and then this period, Bob, that my artist friend Beth created of the noosphere. And the noosphere is about this connected web of humans. It was originally about humans, but it is, as we come to know more and more about the way Gaia operates, it is the mycelium web, it is the trees that have a mother tree now that is just coming out to be known. It's plants. Recently, there's been more and more said about plants and their consciousness, that this is a vibrant, alive system that we are part of. But as Berry and others have stated, and of course the indigenous peoples and knew that it's all connected. And perhaps if you have a reaction to this, you might want to share it in the chat or give voice to it. Thank you. Life is truly a planetary process. And, you know, as we go out into space and we find systems that appear that they might have had water, so there's the potential, we certainly get a glimpse of that it's not a given, that this planet isn't a given, that this life isn't a given. And as Sylvia was talking about going into the forest, or as Melissa was talking about defending the forest, we are hardwired to this connection, and it took a lot of effort to make us feel like we were so separate. And we're coming out, our consciousness is coming out of that sense. And it takes stretching and learning and growing and acting to reconnect with this intensely interconnected web that we are.
Penny, we have two chat comments here. One is from Charles Gary, who says, "To know and not act is to not know." And that's anonymous. And then Melissa adds the lower level of the noosphere, which is, we are all made of photons of light. We are all related through light. Light makes up the matter of the universe. It is simply the frequency of its radiation that shapes it.
Thanks for that, Melissa. Thank you. All right. So the next step in the deep time perspective is interiority. And when I go to studying or thinking about interiority, it gets a little jumbled, because it also means transformation, and it transforms us into our larger identities. Life is part of the 14 billion year flow of evolution and will contribute to the trajectory of evolution based in part on the human scale by personal growth and engagement. How? Through awe and wonder, through envisioning future possibilities, reflecting on experiences and experiencing a sense of purpose by transforming into our deeper identities inside. Our interiority is an important driver of evolution. And this speaks to Brian Swim's idea that the universe is 99.9% generativity or creativity. And that has been a hugely empowering piece of information for me as the routine of life in this separate selves way kind of took over for a while. And just this idea that the universe is completely, every moment, full of different energies and powers coming together to make a different moment than the moment just before it. So putting on your clothes in the morning is not a routine of repetition. It's an opportunity for creativity. Choosing to do an action or choosing not to do an action is a creative choice. Our allurements, and this becomes very, very much part of how the Deeptime Network sees where humans can make choices, can learn to make choices by their natural yearning that arises. These are all choices that we in this privileged country of ours are free to make. And we need to be stretching that muscle. As Melissa's point and also Tomas Berry's points, we have work to do. And what are we called to work to? What is our love? What are we drawn to? Joanna Macy puts it this way: I think the most important thing we need to hear is the voice inside us, which connects us to all beings and to the whole web of life, that is needed now to counteract the crippling of the modern self, which is cruelly contained, as in a prison cell, by the hyper-individualism of the last 5 centuries. Gratitude for the gift of life is the primary wellspring of all religions, the hallmark of the mystic, the source of all true art. It is a privilege to be alive in this time, when we can choose to take part in the self-healing of our world. Okay. And then, as we begin the last of the stages, it is the step of action. And I'll repeat Tomas Berry's, and then I'll read some of what the indigenous, the Ojibwe people are saying. The historical mission of our time is to reinvent the human in a time-dimensional context, which simply means, in my opinion, he's saying, remember, all of this is connected and growing in complexity and connection as it evolves. By a means of story and the shared dream. So there is a prophecy out there, and Bob, would you go to the next one? It comes from the Ojibwe people, and it's called the 7th Fire Prophecy. And it was the prophecies were delivered by different prophets, and the 7th prophet was younger than the others who'd come, and there was a glowing light from his eyes. He said that there would come a time when the waters had been so poisoned that the animals and plants that lived there would fall sick and begin to die. Much of the forests and prairies would be gone, so the air would begin to lose the power of life. In this time, there will arise a new people who will emerge from the clouds of illusion. They will retrace their steps to find the treasures that had been left by the trail. The task of the new people will not be easy. If the new people will find trust in the way of all things, in the circle, and remain strong in their quest, they will no longer need the selfish voice of the ego, and they can begin to trust their inner voice. It is at this time that the light-skinned race will be given a choice between two roads. If they choose the right road, then the seventh fire will light the eighth and final fire. And Tioka-san, Ghost Horse, says this: "This is the hardest time to live, but it is also the greatest honor to be alive now and to be allowed to see this time. There is no other time like now. We should be thankful, for creation did not make weak spirits to live during this time. The old ones say this is the time when the strongest spirits will live through. We have become masters of survival. We will survive. It is our prophecy to do so. Humanity must shift from living on the earth to living with her." All right. And as I close, I'll leave these questions for you to consider. Within what relationships do your allurements come alive? What kind of relating brings aliveness in this moment? What are the relationships I need to bring into my life to activate my allurement more fully? It's in this allurement, in this remembering or coming to see anew, that the action will flow from you. And for some people, it will be standing with the forests. For others, they'll find other paths. There is no shortage of what needs loving and saving. Here in the Midwest, the Great Lakes are in grave danger. So it's sitting with, what is your work to do? I'd like to close with this. Thank you. If you find yourself half naked and barefoot in the frosty grass, hearing again the earth's great sonorous moan that says you are the air of the now and gone, that says all you love will turn to dust and will meet you there, do not raise your fist. Do not raise your small voice against it, and do not take cover. Instead, curl your toes into the grass. Watch the cloud ascending from your lips. Walk through the garden's dormant splendor. Say thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Penny. Thank you. Thank you very much. We have, thank you. I'm thinking of the COVID as you talk, things we thought we couldn't live without, and we did. I think there's going to be more of that. And it will feel as good as some people have felt the COVID experience of being home and connected, more connected to people. So I appreciate it. It gives me hope. Gives me hope. Our next Any other comments that people like to make? Rollo, say thank you, Penny. Thank you. So, so anybody else like to say something out loud to thank her or anything? Welcome that. Our next speaker, just when you're ready, go ahead and say you're ready. Our next speaker is Herman Green, who has done a lot of work in cosmology, but also for the rights of nature and the legal work that's being done internationally to protect the rights of nature. So another way to chain yourself to a tree is to do that kind of work. And I think we'll be very interested in what he has to say and to find out what is going on and what we can support. For closing, I'm offering some music. I'm a musician, so I'm offering some music as an ending. And this is a recording. There's a piece of a recording that was made by me and 3 others on the words Ein Sof Or, which is one of the names of God, the God of light. God is light, from the Hebrew tradition. And we have in our formerly weekly Creation, Spirituality, Mystics in Motion gatherings have done some improvisation on these names, which means we just open it up with a Shruti box, which is the open fifth, which is 2 notes that are found in spiritual music all around the globe. It is, and that's because it's in the, talk about vibrations, it's in the foundation vibrations of any particular note that you hear. At first you go in octave, which is a doubly fast. And then there's like fast again, which puts it at the 5th, the halfway, and then back up to again, the doubles go, and then up to a 3rd. And so it increases this, again, a panoply of vibrations that create all the sounds, but the basic sounds, so that we call the Pythagoras called the holy ratios between in all sacred geometry are built on the same ratios as inside any single note. Ooh, that note right there, that you have all the sacred geometry of the universe in that one note. So we use that as our basis. It's a Shruti box, is from India. And then we allow ourselves just to improvise. I would call that now allurement. We move as the spirit moves us. And sometimes there's dissonance and sometimes there's harmony. But we begin to let it's a practice for letting your ego go. There's no ego anymore. There's just the sound. And there's no intention anymore. There is just the sounding, just the sound that comes out. And it is a way of entraining ourselves, is the word that Penny used earlier, entraining ourselves with the movement of the universe, or the great creative, spiritual, energetic, vibrational whole, which we only understand 5% of, that moves through us and creates this time together. So I thought, as that it gives us a sense of entrainment and also of a little listen to the universe itself, singing and voicing itself. So Bob, I wonder if you would be willing to play that for us.
You're muted, Gail.
My cat started singing along, so I stopped. I turned on the. So may you find those moments and those relationships that make you sing like that, that group who sang together, connecting with all time and space in our way. It's a different choice than trying to sing a cute pop song, right? It's your practice. You choose your practice, and the practice is to go for that deep connection with the universe. Or you can kind of party along with the culture and the Western civilization, and you know where that's going to take us. So we need to make this choice, what we're going to allure ourselves and allow ourselves to become our, as Penny says, our larger self, or just follow along and hope somebody else is doing something about it. And this is doing something about it. So thank you, Penny. It was very inspirational, as always, and gave us a lot to think about. If Rollo says, I love the notion of choosing your practice. Yes. So choose your practice. And thank you, Penny. And we hope we see you next month, always the first Thursday at 4:00 Eastern. And the next time we'll be hearing on the rights of nature. And please.
Gail, can I say a word about Herman?
Yes, yeah, please, yeah.
I want to leave you with a thought that has been sticking with me, because sometimes the biggest news is so contrary to everything we spoke about today. But Herman shared this metaphor. He said, every night I take a little pill that keeps my whole body in balance. And he hits his belief that even though it may look like the work that's being done to save our earth is not succeeding, or not bigger than the work that seems to be taking it down, think of that small pill that is keeping the whole thing in balance, and that it's his belief that there's a tipping point. And if those of you who have seen Blessed Unrest, a Paul Hawken video, at the very end of that video, he shows all the works, all the groups and organizations that are working for the good, the greater good. And they just recede into space. It's a powerful thing to look at, because again, all of a sudden you understand that there is a matrix of good work being done in all realms, and that there's this idea of tipping point, and that may those works of good be the tipping point as we make our way forward.
Thank you. Please send me a request for the chat. I think I'll try to leave it up here for a while as we end. So if you want to copy something down straight off, you can do that. And then the rest we'll send to you. And may you find something important and deep and connected, part of the matrix, through your own interior self of the gift of who you are this next month, till we see each other again. Thank you. gonna try to copy it. Something.
I just sent it to you in an email, Gail. That's what I have.
Oh, thank you. I tried to, I copied it and I put it in a note. Hope I can find it again. I mean, it's a new Mac and it tell you, it's almost more stressful to have a new computer than it is to move.
Yeah.
It's just, yeah, I could turn off the recording now. Okay.
Oh, right. Yeah. I didn't remember to start the recording until you were in the middle of your introduction of Penny.
Okay.
So,
Well, hope we can find a good sentence, to begin it with there. Or we can just start with Penny. We can just,
well, that's it. Yeah.
when people, how everybody needs to have things fast these days, so that, too much beforehand when it's not communal is, well, thank you, Bob. It was wonderful to have you. It was
Oh.
wonderful. I don't know if Penny, you still here?
Doesn't look like it.
No.
Well, I hope so. I think happy to help. And I mean, especially this is much simpler organization than some of the events that I'm used to, and so it's it was easy to follow along.
Good. Well, we're glad. It may have seemed less to you, but it was a mountain for us. It was a wonderful gift. Yeah.
Great.
Okay.
I noticed there are some comments in there from Melissa that I want to go back and reread.
Okay. But you got that copied?
Yeah.
Yeah. I had yes.
Well,
yes.
it rang a bell because, and I didn't read all of it, but just the first part of her comment sounded like something my advisor at York University used to say to me. I was such a fan of Tomas Berry, and he has more qualified viewpoint.
So he felt that.
Well, Melissa's comment was that not everyone believes, these are very westernized views.
Yes. Yeah, I saw that about her. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I wanted to write back, well, but I'm embedded in Western, and this is I have to rise up out of this because with this language, because I'm not indigenous. But that's true. I see. It's it's true. I read some of Tomas Berry's stuff just lately, and I thought, that I really felt that also they were talking about, it was just Middle East at the most, Europe and the United States. And our since those days, 50 years ago, we've certainly expanded to a different understanding of Western civilization. I see what you mean.
Yeah. Well, I didn't know how else. I answered it very much the same way. I said, this is my tradition. This is what I know. And, that it's providing guidance for me. So.
It's also the tradition that's doing all the damage. So it's us. We have to stop it. I mean, because it's ours.
Yeah. Exactly. All righty. Well,
okay, we'll call you. We'll let you know, and this will be. He has a lot of slides, so we'll give you something a little more complicated next time.
Oh, okay. Very good. If just bear in mind, if he would be more comfortable driving his own slides, we can let him do that. Doesn't have to.
Okay, I'll ask him. We'll ask him.
Do it either way. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Great.
Thanks, Gail.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.